You've spelunked into the Matt Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for the birthday wishes as well. I had a good birthday. It was really nice and relaxing with family and video games. It was a good time. And I hope you all had a happy 4th of July, or if you're in Canada, happy Canada Day last week. And it was relaxing and you had some fun. Let's just kind of dive into things this week. It's going to be a very soccer, well, not even going to be really soccer heavy. I am going to rant about the U.S. men's national team and Gregg Berhalter and the change I want to see, but will probably not happen. But I did say that about the Utah Hockey Club and who they draft, so who knows, right? And then I'll also talk about the Utah Jazz, and I've calmed it down since the draft. I've had a lot of time to think about what's going on there, and I kind of see what the think tank over there at the Delta Center is doing. And so I'll try to explain what I saw and am seeing and why the Jazz are making moves that they're making right now. And then after that, a stream update. I didn't stream it all last week because I took last week off, but I should be back to my regular scheduled programming, but I'll go over that later as well. But as always, please do like, subscribe, rate, comment, wherever it is, however it is you listen. Please do so. It helps out a ton, more than you could possibly imagine. I know you hear that from every podcaster, but it's true. That's why we all bug you to do it. So please do so. You've all been amazing to me thus far, and I just can't thank you enough. And you can follow me on the socials, that is on Twitter or X, at the Matt Cave Pod, on Facebook, the Matt Cave Podcast, on twitch.tv/Matts, M-A-T-T-S, Cave, and on YouTube, just search the Matt Cave Podcast, all one word, and you'll find my little channel. All right, I think that does it for all of the intro, so let's go. So why Berhalter needs to go. I posted that on Facebook. I also sent out a tweet or an X or whatever it's called about it as well. Let's dive into it. So these are going to be some kind of embarrassing statistics I'm going to read out to you, but they are necessary for my argument. First, the USA is the first host nation of the Copa America to not advance out of the group stage. And their group stage was probably the easiest of any country. Any country. First time in the last 19 competitions the U.S. has been in that they have not advanced out of the group stage. 19. That counts like Gold Cup, even counts Olympics, it counts, what else is there? The Nations League, there's also World Cup, Copa America, all of those. The last 19. It's been a long time since the U.S. has not advanced out of the group. Gregg Berhalter is now 0 wins, 5 losses, and 5 draws versus top 15 teams not named Mexico. That's bad. That's really bad. Winless is another way to say that. The highest-ranked non-Mexico team the U.S. has beaten under Gregg Berhalter is Iran. And they were ranked 20th at the time at the 2020 Qatar World Cup, or 2022 Qatar World Cup. And they won that barely. Barely. It took Christian Pulisic getting hurt to win that one. So those are just some of the embarrassing stats for you as to why Gregg Berhalter needs to go. Why was he rehired in the first place? Well, from what I have gathered through multiple different sources is that the players liked him. And that was the main reason. That's not a good enough reason. If you hire a manager that the players like, if you hire a coach that the managers like, they're not going to listen to him. It's white noise to them, and they're just going to play how they want to play. Do you think people enjoy playing for Pep Guardiola for Manchester City? Do you think they enjoyed playing for Bill Belichick, Phil Jackson, Jimmy Johnson? No, they hated it. But they won. And it took them until after they retired, the players that is, to appreciate what those people do. Or after they left them for other teams or, retirement, what have you, to appreciate what those guys did. So if you have a buddy-buddy coach that the players love, it's because they get away with stuff that another manager wouldn't allow them to get away with. My next point is he was brought back because he was the cheapest option. That's ridiculous. The U.S., among many metrics, is the richest nation in the world. With the World Cup coming up, we cannot afford to look this bad on the world stage. No matter what the group draw is. It's usually pretty soft for the host nation. Usually. This is unacceptable. Lastly, I just want to point out that he doesn't get his players ready for the small things. Even when I played soccer when I was 12 to 14 years old, when our team was better than the other team, we just were. We were more talented, we were bigger, stronger, whatever it was. Our coaches, even then, in the early 2000s, before soccer was even a big thing in the U.S., our coaches knew, and they warned us, that these kids are going to do things that the referee is not going to see, and you cannot allow it to get under your skin. That is them saying that you guys are better than us, so we're going to try to do whatever it is on the fringes of the rules to knock you off your game so we can have a chance. That's exactly what Panama did against the U.S., and the U.S. was not ready for it. Timothy Weah, a red card in, the 16th minute or whatever? He's going to bump you, dude. He's going to step on your cleats. He's going to shove you around. He's going to knock you around when the referees aren't looking. The best way to get back at him is to score a goal, is to nutmeg him, is to show off your skill to prove that you are better than this guy who's just bumping you around a little bit and getting under your skin. That's the best way to come back at it, not pushing him in the head. The commentators were saying it was a punch to the head, please. That's a soccer punch. It was a push. Like, he was going for the guy's shoulder, the guy ducked, and he hit him in the head. I mean, that's a red card 10 times out of 10. The referee got it right. But you have to get your players ready for that. You have to get them in the right mindset. And then in the game against Uruguay, they were drawing, right? 0-0. And then Bolivia drew even with Panama. Bolivia ultimately wound up losing to Panama. But Gregg Berhalter was telling his players on the field that the other game was 1-1. What? Who cares what's going on in that other game? You control your own fate. Don't tell your players what's going on elsewhere. Tell them to focus in and get some goals. Play to their ability. Not care about what's going on so we can lay off the pedal. What happened after Gregg Berhalter told that to his team? Uruguay scored 60 seconds later. And the U.S. ultimately wound up losing that game and got knocked out of the cup. So everything that man does infuriates the fan base. Infuriates us. I have never seen the U.S. men's national team soccer fan base in a fervor like this before, where pretty much 99% of the voices are calling for the manager's head. Even with Bob Bradley, even with Jurgen Klinsmann, there was still a healthy portion of fans saying, well, let's hold off for a second. Let's let him cook for a little bit here. Not this time. So the U.S. Soccer Federation cannot afford to screw this up. They cannot afford to allow this to be the status quo. It is unacceptable seeing a team as talented as this one perform so horribly. So horribly. It is unbelievable to me that they would lose to Panama, that they would only win by 2 goals against Bolivia, and that they would lose to Uruguay. I said this before the tournament kicked off. The U.S. should have expected to go through that group undefeated, 9 points, first place out of the group. That should have been the expectation, but instead Gregg Berhalter said we hope to get out of the group. Well, guess what? You hoped, your players read that, they heard that, and, well, all of that hoping equated to 3 points. And a loss to Panama, and a loss to Uruguay. Panama, the 45th ranked country in the world. You lost to them. You fell for their games. Panama had a better read on the refereeing than the U.S. did, which is, again, unacceptable with the amount of money this soccer federation has. So the entire coaching staff needs to be replaced, the entirety of it. Gregg Berhalter needs to go. His lead assistant is now the head coach of Nashville FC. Good riddance to bad rubbish. And to be fair, when that guy was in charge of the U.S. during the Nations League, They looked good. They were positive. They were moving the ball forward. They were connecting on passes. The U.S. had the worst, almost the worst. They were third worst pass percentage in the group stages of this competition, of Copa America. They had 76% pass percentage. Holy Moses. That's, again, unacceptable. There were 3 to 4 players that actually looked like they wanted to be there and wanted to win. Anthony Robinson was a delight to watch. That dude has the energy of 10 men and has the speed of Usain Bolt. He's constantly flying up and down the field. He wanted to win. He had a need to win. The other one was Flo Balogun. That guy proved he is the striker. He proved it. And the only way they took him off that field is because he could not walk. His leg and his back were injured. Otherwise, he would have stayed out there. So that's the 2 that I believe are the most wanting to be there. Weston McKennie is another one. He was doing stuff that I didn't ever see him do for the national team before. He was sprinting to get back on defense. He never did that before. He was controlling the field in the middle of the field, like Tyler Adams would. And Tyler Adams is the other one. He is the other one. Those are the 4. Christian Pulisic, after the first game, disappeared. He had 0 impact on the game, other than whining to referees. As a captain, you don't do that. You do not whine to referees. You go up to the referee and you ask why he called the foul, the reason he called the foul, and at halftime you just ask questions about the way he's calling the game, and you ask him if he's seen a couple of things, and that's it. That's all you do as the captain. You don't constantly go up to the referee and whine, no matter how horrible the referee is. And that referee in the Uruguay game was in over his head. He's young. He's younger than me. And so this was like his 7th professional game. That was an oversight by CONMEBOL, or maybe it was on purpose. Who knows? But that's not reason enough to lose your cool as the captain. You stay calm. You try to befriend the referee as much as possible. I remember doing that when I was just a kid. And I just asked those referees, those volunteer referees, hey, did you see this? And they go, oh, no, but I'll keep an eye out for it. And I say, great, that's all I ask. And I'd walk away. I was a kid, and I knew to do that. Man, oh, man. Okay, so those are my problems with the U.S. men's national team. There's a lot to fix in 2 years. Who do I think would be a better pick? Well, obviously, the name out there is Jurgen Klopp. Everybody and their sister is saying, well, the U.S. should go and get Jurgen Klopp. I agree. But why is it not going to happen? Well, first, managers on the level of Jurgen Klopp want to win trophies. And the U.S., success for the U.S. for this World Cup is to get deep in the knockouts. It's not to win it, although that should be the goal of the team itself. But the realistic expectations for the U.S. men's national team would be to get to the quarterfinals at worst, semifinals at best. And so that's kind of the expectation here. Jurgen Klopp wants trophies. So that's why I don't think he would go to the U.S., although he will have a fleet of celebrities going to his door saying you should come here. Second, the the U.S. Soccer Federation is cheap. They are a bunch of cheap, power-hungry lizards that don't know how to run anything. Yeah, I'm calling them out. Jesse Marsch I said this last week, I believe, is the guy I wanted to replace Gregg Berhalter. The main reason why the U.S. Soccer Federation did not hire him, at least that I could find, was that he wanted too much money. Gee, how's that working out for Canada? Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they're in the semifinal of the Copa America. Their very first one ever, mind you. And they are demonstrably worse, talent-wise, than the U.S. The U.S.'s starting 11 had 10 of those 11 guys playing in Europe. It would have been 11 for 11 had Sergiño Dest not been hurt. Canada has 5, I believe, playing in Europe. Yeah. And their bench is even worse. So that just angers me even further. They had the guy. The guy was out there, and they were too chintzy to get him. That's infuriating. So Jurgen Klopp. I'm going to go back to this for one more reason. With the money that the impending World Cup will bring in, it would be stupid to say that he's too expensive. And that's the reason. You need Jurgen Klopp himself to come out and say, I don't want to coach the U.S. men's national team. You give him every reason under the sun to take it over. You give him a 30-year guaranteed contract. You do whatever it takes to get this guy. Because what we saw at Copa America is unacceptable. Unacceptable. For a country that has as much money as we do, with a country that has the expectations we do for this generation that is no longer young, youth and inexperience are no longer an excuse for this team. There needs to be something that happens. The U.S. Soccer Federation says they hired the best manager in the world for the women's national team, and they did. It's time to do it for the men's. It's time to suck it up, Buttercup, and do it. The whole stupid thing that the U.S. men's national team manager has to be from the U.S. is so stupid. If you look at the history of the U.S. men's national team, they performed best under Jurgen Klinsmann. Jurgen Klinsmann is from West Germany. So you tell me. And the other options out there are not great because we're so far into this international cycle that there aren't great options available. Guys like Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, they're under contract with clubs. And this isn't EAFC or FIFA as it used to be called. You can't have both. You can't do both. It's impossible. The other names out there, really the only other one that catches my attention, catches my eyes, Thierry Henry. Yes, I understand he flamed out at AS Monaco in the French League after 20 games, but he managed Montreal to the playoffs the very next season. He knows what he's doing. He's a legend in his own right. And if for no other reason, it will be attention towards the U.S. men's national team that is something other than, ho-hum, it's Gregg Berhalter again, because they're too scared to roll the dice on anything else. And if we've seen anything, the most fun teams to watch at Copa America and at the Euro are the ones willing to take risks. The most boring teams at both competitions play not to lose. They don't play to win. And that is so stupid. France, they haven't scored goals, but they play to win. They don't just sit behind the ball. Spain, holy moly, they've been a joy to watch. They score multiple goals a game because they go forward. They take risks. England is among the worst to watch. They have the most talent, I think, of any team remaining at the Euro, and they don't show it because the team is filled with prima donnas that don't want to make the self-sacrificing runs to open up the field for the guys with the ball to do something. And then the Netherlands, they score multiple goals a game, except for, I think, in one. And so that's another one. They take risks. They go forward. They want to win. The U.S., under Gregg Berhalter, always plays not to lose the game. It is so frustrating to watch when you have front-facing talent like Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Flo Balogun, Tim Weah, Weston McKennie. That you've got this talent, and you're just telling them to play not to lose. Oh, man. Regardless of what happens, though, Gregg Berhalter needs to go. And it's gotten so bad for them, they have turned off comments on their social media accounts when they post stuff. Because it's filled with fire Gregg Berhalter. So they have to know that if they keep this guy, I don't want to be on social media that day. All right, so that's more than enough about the U.S. men's national team. You can tell I was very angry about the result and about how they have done. So let's quickly move on to the Utah Jazz. All right, so the Jazz. I was angry at the draft. I was. And I explained to you why. And then it took me about a week to calm down, and I've thought about it. And the Jazz are on a different timeline than what the fans want them to be on. So this is year 2, or we're going into year 3 of the rebuild. And it's going to take another 2 to 3 years, Jazz fans. I'm sorry, it is. It's just going to take another 2 to 3 years. What the Jazz front office has done, at least from what I can tell, they've looked at the Western Conference, and it is 10 teams deep of teams that in any other season, any other era of the NBA, those 10 teams could have won the title. Honestly. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. So the Warriors, that obstacle is gone. Steph Curry, Draymond Green are older. They cannot carry the team like they used to. And they're on the end cycle of a dynasty, which happens to every dynasty, where the old stars command too much money and the new talent coming in isn't up to snuff. And that's where the Warriors are. They do still have Steph, they do still have Draymond, but they don't really have anything else. And that's where they're sitting, which is why they're so aggressively trying to get Lauri Markkanen off the Jazz. I'll talk about that situation in a moment. But Klay Thompson moved to the Mavericks. So you can replace the Warriors with the Mavericks, because now the Mavericks have their own triplets. Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, and, that guy, Luka Doncic. They're going to be good for at least 3 years. The Kings, yes, the Sacramento Kings, or as Shaquille O'Neal called them in the early 2000s, the Queens, they've raised their floor. Now, their ceiling hasn't really increased at all, in my opinion, but they did do a sign and trade to get DeMar DeRozan from the Bulls, king of the mid-range, and they gave up a couple of big contracts to get him that were just basically dead money. So they've raised their floor, which means they'll be in the conversation for seeds, I would say 3 through 5 for the upcoming season, maybe a couple seasons afterwards with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan. It's a mini triplet situation. The Rockets have improved. Those free agent signings that they splashed on last offseason have been great compliments to their young talent. They finished at 500 last season, and they're only going to improve with Ime Udoka at the helm. It's just facts. The Thunder and Grizzlies, if the Grizzlies were healthy last season, they were going to be a top seed, hands down. Don't even talk to me. And so they're healthy heading into this season. They shut down so many players last year, and they just said, all right, we're just going to go for next year. We're just going to go for next year. And that's what they're doing. Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., whole bunch of guys on that team. Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart. Yeah, the Grizzlies are going to be good. The Thunder, just look at their record last year. That's about where they're going to be for the next, 5, 6, 7 years. If they can keep that young talent together, which it looks like they're going to be able to. As long as the Nuggets, let's move on to there. As long as the Nuggets have their 4 key players, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr., they're going to be good. That's a pretty darn good starting lineup. The Suns, by the way, they still have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Now, there's not much defense on that team, but they can score with the best of them. And Kevin Durant is annoyed at everyone saying he wants out. I've never seen him say those words since he got on the Suns, so I don't know where that's coming from. So they're still going to be in the conversation. Minnesota, yeah. They're kind of rebuilding the Jazz 2.0 over there because they just signed Joe Ingles. But they still have Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley. They got Rob Dillingham in the draft, which is going to be a great compliment coming off the bench. So that team's going to be good for at least 3 years. The Pelicans, they traded for DeJounte Murray. Thank you for taking that bullet for the Jazz. They have DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson. Now, if those guys can stay healthy, that's a scary team. The Clippers, they may have lost Paul George, but hey, they still have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. So they have one less mouth to feed. I hate the phrase addition by subtraction, but that might be the case for the Clippers as they open their new arena. And the Lakers are still there. LeBron James and his infinite, what's the word I'm looking for here? His grace signed only a $52 million contract, 2 years, $104 million, so that the Lakers could have a little bit of extra spending money. Bow down to King James and his infinite humility for taking a pay cut. Bow down, as ESPN wants us to do. But LeBron James and Anthony Davis are still there, so we'll see if they'll still remain a threat. I think they'll be in the play-in range, because LeBron James he's north of 40 now, so he's not going to be able to play a full season the way he used to. So that's 10 teams in a 15-team conference. And then there's always a surprise team, like the Trailblazers could surprise, or the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama could surprise. Like he could take that leap with the extra help from Chris Paul and their first-round draft picks. Or, something else crazy might happen. But for the Jazz, they look at this too, and they say, all right, these teams are going to be really good for 3 to 5 years, not counting the Thunder or Grizzlies. They'll be good for longer than that. Let's take a look at what we've got. Let's take a look at our treasure trove of draft picks, and let's kind of set out a timeline here. Lauri Markkanen, love him to death, great player, fantastic human being, doesn't fit the timeline. If you look at the players the Jazz have drafted, they're all in their early 20s, late teens. Lauri Markkanen is about 6 to 7 years above them. He doesn't fit. So what the Jazz are looking for in a return for Lauri Markkanen is a lot. They want draft picks, they want veterans, and they want young players with upside. That's a lot. That's like more than what they got for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. That's what they want for him, though. That's why a deal hasn't materialized. So I looked at that, and I went, all right, let me put on my Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, Will Hardy thinking cap here, and let's see what's going on. So they see this, and they go, all right, our guys probably won't be NBA-ready, regular, everyday starters for another 1.5 to 2 years. At which point, we'll know which of our draft picks are hits, which are misses, and which are bench guys. Once we have this figured out, we can then do the home run swing we've been talking about for a few years with that treasure trove of draft picks. Because if you look at the Eastern Conference right now, or the Leastern Conference as it's been known since LeBron basically went west, there's really like only 3 teams that are any good out there. The Celtics, obviously, the 76ers, now that they have Paul George, and the Bucks. I don't put the Knicks up there. I think they were a flash in the pan last year. What else do you have out there? The Heat? The Heat barely made the play-in, and then they flamed out. Pun intended. The Pacers? I don't believe that either. I think they were a flash in the pan as well. The Knicks and Pacers, by the way, if they were in the West, they would be in the play-in at best. So I look at that and I see, all right, so some of these guys in the Western Conference, their contracts are coming up. These teams in the East do have money now. So during this time period, there's going to be attrition in the West. Guys are going to move east, they're going to get the contracts they want, and the talent's going to even out. LeBron James is going to retire, maybe. Kevin Durant is going to retire, maybe. And then what happens? Chris Paul is basically retired. He's a glorified coach now for the Spurs. So what's in the Jazz's way in 3 to 5 years? The Thunder and the Grizzlies. Maybe the Rockets. That's only 3 teams as opposed to the 10 that are in their way right now. So that's why they haven't made the home run swing, and why it's going to be another few years of just terrible, terrible basketball. I don't know if Will Hardy is going to survive it. I don't know if he'll want to survive it. But that's kind of where the Jazz are. And why I've kind of calmed down on my rhetoric. Because I look at that and I think that's pretty smart. Now you have to sell it to the fan base, and good luck with that, because you're not going to be able to. Because the fan base is already angry, frustrated, sick of losing. Well, there's going to be another 2 to 3 years of it. You're just going to have to swallow it. Or just turn that passion towards the Utah Hockey Club. That's an exciting future. All right, lastly, streaming update. I will be streaming again. Vacation's over. I will be back. I'm going to start playing Final Fantasy XIV because the new expansion came out. So please do join me there. I'll start up stream around 6 to 6:30 Mountain Time and go for a few hours every weeknight. And then depending on how I'm feeling on the weekends, I'll pop on stream then. But follow my socials so you know when I go live, and I hope to see you all there. But that does it for the episode this week, Spelunkers. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave. I didn't even have time to talk about Real Salt Lake this week. 2 wins, and they scored like 8 goals. Are you kidding me?